I'm Vijaya, making sense of immigration law with lawyers from the NPZ Law Group only on Mirchi. And joining me is Samantha Oberstein. She's managing attorney at NPZ's Fort Lauderdale office. Welcome, Samantha.
Hi, Vijaya. How are you?
Doing well, Samantha. So, I have a question from a listener, and he asks, I'm the victim of a crime that occurred many years ago. Would I still be eligible for a U visa?
That's a good question. So just to take a quick step back, a U visa is for victims of crime in the U.S. There's a list of qualifying crimes on the USCIS website, and they range from significant crimes to more insignificant. But um, to answer this listener's question, it
Mhm.
depends. And I know that's not a great answer.
Yeah.
But with the U visa, what's important to keep in mind, number one, is that we need some sort of record. So whether
Hmm.
that be a police report, a court case, an OSHA, if this is some sort of labor investigation, an OSHA report, there needs to be some sort of report. So sometimes we find that when clients come to us and they say, well, this happened to me, let's say 10, 15 years ago, I never reported it to the police or to OSHA, there was never a court case. That's where it gets a little bit tricky because sometimes there are statute of limitations on reporting certain crimes.
Yeah. Hmm.
And in that we don't necessarily have much control over, and every crime is going to be different. Every state, even within the state, everything's going to change. But
So every crime
as
has its own statute of limitations?
correct,
Okay.
that's correct. And that's something that, if they were to, for example, now report a crime, let's say an assault or a rape or something like that to
Hmm.
the police would be able to tell them, okay, we can take the report or it's beyond what we're able to help with.
Yeah.
Um, but regardless, assuming that there is a report or assuming that you're able to now file a report, the first step in a U visa case is to get a certification signed by the agency, by the law enforcement agency, the court, OSHA, whomever. And that's where this gets a little bit complicated because if the crime occurred, let's go with 15 years ago as our
Hmm.
example, um, there is no statute of limitations for us to be able to file the U visa, but if it's been a long time, it may be difficult for them to locate the records.
Yeah.
And I would assume they would still have those records, but every agency has their own rules with regard to holding on to things like that.
Yeah.
So if the client is coming to us with many documents and the police report and the arrest report and court records, that's going to make it a lot easier for us to be able to make that argument to the law enforcement agency that you were helpful. Now,
Hmm.
sometimes we'll get pushback because for a U visa, we need to be able to show not only that you were the victim of a crime, but that you were helpful or are likely to be helpful in the future. And sometimes we'll get pushback from, let's say, a police department that's not too familiar with the U visa process, and they'll say, well, this crime occurred 15 years ago. There's nothing else we're going to need from the victim at this time, so we're not going to sign it. And that's where we have to really step in and explain what the policy is, what the regulations are, and hope that they're able to then agree with us and sign it. So
Hmm.
it really depends on the nature of the crime. It depends on how long ago, where it was,
Yeah.
what steps the client has taken to try and, I guess file a report or assist. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And the other thing to keep in mind is that at the time of filing your U visa case, you can include any dependents that you have at that point. So spouse and unmarried children under 21. But it's at the time of the filing, not at the
Filing.
time of the crime. So if
Hmm.
you were married at the time of your crime, of whatever happened, but now you're no longer married, that spouse can no longer be part of the case. If your children have aged out by the time you're filing, they can no longer be part of the case. So that's something to keep in mind for those who maybe have a crime that occurred many years ago. They need to be eligible at the time of filing.
Hmm.
There's certain protections in place to keep them eligible throughout the pendency, but they need to be eligible at time of filing. So
Yeah.
to answer this listener's question, yes, you can file, but there are some things that we would need to take a look at to see if it's possible to move ahead.
So it's complicated like everything else in
Always
immigration.
complicated. Exactly.
Well, thank you for that, Samantha. And that's Samantha Oberstein, empowering clients through quality legal counsel. She's part of the NPZ Law Group, the business and family immigration law firm that represents clients from throughout the US and around the world. Seek their advice today by visiting visaserve.com or simply call them at 201 670 0006. And remember to claim a special discount of your consult when you mention Mirchi. Keeping on track with the law, immigration law, with the NPZ Law Group. Back in a few minutes, lots more to come. Please stay with us on Mirchi. It's